There is a growing sentiment that Nebraska could be the surprise of the 2024 season. And I think that could be outstanding and cool. They're going to start this year against UTEP. We're going to get the Dylan Raiola experience, a 5-star quarterback, one of the highest rated players ever to commit and sign with Nebraska, who had a raucous journey from one side of the country in Arizona to another in Georgia, where he's playing high school football. He was committed to Ohio State, then he was committed to Georgia. Then he flipped his commitment to Nebraska, where his father is a legend as an offensive lineman and his uncle is the offensive line coach. And we're in year 2 of the Matt Rhule experience at Nebraska. And every year 2 that Matt Rhule has had in college football has been the turnaround season, has been the one where they have gone bowling. And then the third year is the one where they compete for championships. Maybe that's at an accelerated pace this season. There's a couple of reasons as to why. I believe Dylan Raiola is the most talented quarterback that Matt Rhule has ever had in college football. That matters. I know that there are folks that are probably going to pick a fight about Baylor, pick a fight about Temple, but you'd be wrong. You'd just be wrong. Dylan Raiola is not only the most talented quarterback that Matt Rhule has ever had in college, he also is playing a position that was horrendous last year for Nebraska. Jeff Sims could not have played a worse game than he did against Colorado last year. If you just take care of the football, you're in that game. And you're in a bunch of other games. And not for nothing, even with horrendous play, they had an opportunity to get to bowl eligibility last year. They just couldn't finish. Now, assuming you just take care of the football, assuming you can just run and score points like a regular-ass football team, assuming Tony White's defense, his 3-3-5, is out here hunting, assuming Thomas Fedone turns out to be the guy that we all think Thomas could be, you've got a player. And I'm inclined to believe that they can do this, because it's not just that I think that Nebraska is better at quarterback than they have been in years and has its best opportunity to go bowling since 2016. It's a brand new Big Ten. It's a brand new college football. We're being honest about this. And they have a schedule that has set up nicely for them. Look at their schedule. They beat UTEP. They beat Colorado. Then you're talking about Rutgers. You're talking about Purdue. You could be 7-0 by the time you get to Ohio State. I don't think that Nebraska is going to win that game, but I think at 7-0, they would give you an opportunity to say, maybe. Maybe they catch Ohio State on a bad day. Maybe something bad happens to the most talented roster in all of college football. Who knows, right? But let's assume the worst. Let's assume that they get beat down in that game. You still got USC, UCLA, Iowa, Wisconsin. I think you could beat UCLA. USC, we'll see. Not sure what to make of Miller Moss, except to say Lincoln Riley doesn't make a habit of missing on quarterbacks, okay? We'll see how that goes. The defense is probably going to be better than it was last year, given the size that they've added, Danton Lynn's pedigree as a defensive coordinator, and the staff that is around them. I think USC is going to be a good football team. Wisconsin might be on level, on par with Nebraska. We're going to get a good read on Wisconsin when they play Alabama in a couple of weeks' time. And then you talk about Iowa, who's got, for the last couple of years, one of the best defenses in all of college football, but they have not been able to move the football at all. If that changes for them with Tim Lester, Cade McNamara, we'll go through with that. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to really tell you what it means for Nebraska to be good until they are good. But as an Oklahoma guy who grown up with that rivalry and was terrified of Nebraska in the 90s, terrified of them in the early aughts, the only other program that operates like Nebraska other than Oklahoma is like Arkansas, because when we're good, that's the only thing going on. And we are so loud about it that everybody has to watch us play football. And I think you're going to see that with Nebraska. I think you're going to see CBS, NBC, Fox, ESPN. Everybody's going to have something to say about Nebraska football if they can do what they haven't done in well over 2 decades. Get off to one hell of a fantastic start. And the other reason I know that this is going to be true is that game against Colorado is in Lincoln. And you know Matt Rhule wants to beat Colorado and Coach Prime in the worst way. You have the two most popular players in the sport and the most popular coach in the sport. Right, let's say the most famous coach in the sport in Coach Prime. And Matt Rhule, son of a preacher, has been doing his best to walk it like he talks it, to build this thing from the bottom, to try to build a cohesive football program at a time when change is the competition. That's who you're playing against. You're playing against change. He's had a new athletic director come in Troy Dannon. He's had to remake what he thinks of players out of the portal. He is the guy coming out and saying it's going to cost you $1 to $2 million to get a good transfer quarterback. And yet he still was recruiting the hell out of Dylan Raiola, trying to get him to Lincoln in the worst way, even knowing he had the offensive line coach on the staff. Knowing what Dominic Raiola has meant to that program, has meant to Nebraska football, because he knows what he needs to win. And I think for the first time since he got to Nebraska, he feels like he has what he needs to win. And I like watching Matt Rhule teams. They're fun. Like, even when they were giving Oklahoma the what for and the how now in the Big 12 title game 2019, I'm going, I don't want nothing to do with that program. Like, the Waco game in and of itself was, Oklahoma shouldn't have won that game, which makes it one of the best games I've ever seen in my entire life. And that one is Nick Bonito just coming up with the pick to seal it all. But I really love watching what this program is capable of with Matt Rhule. I really like how he has reached out to the people and the coaches in that community, that he shows up to coaches' clinics himself, that he goes to high school football games, that he understands there isn't a door in the state of Nebraska he can't knock on and walk in. I really wish more coaches would take that into account when they are taking a job, because there is nothing like being the head coach of a college football program in your town. Nothing. There's nothing like being the high school football coach at a good program in your town. Hell, I was just at Broken Arrow for middle school volleyball, and I'm walking by and I get to see a couple of the kids at the indoor facility, which is state-of-the-art at Broken Arrow. That's what it means to be a high school football coach in the Tulsa metro area. I'm not talking about Owasso. I'm not talking about Booker T. I'm talking about Broken Arrow. I don't want to make it sound like Broken Arrow is just bad, but Broken Arrow is not necessarily a program that rings out nationally. Imagine when you can throw that over the top of Nebraska football, because what Dr. Osborne had done in creating this monster that everybody had to acknowledge in the late 70s, early 80s, all through the 90s, you get to live off of that. That is the foundation. That's where you get the term blue blood from. Like, you're one of the pillars of the game. The game is better when your pillars are strong, and Nebraska is a pillar. So, yeah, I think Ohio State could see an undefeated Nebraska, or more to the point, Nebraska could get to bowl eligibility before they play Ohio State, and then it's a party.